Hey everyone, I'll be discussing exercise 2 in technical writing 1 on active voice. Active voice is a fundamental practice in good technical writing, so this is an important concept for students to understand. The first slide is a fun way to get students engaged. Ask them to identify the animal on the right. They get it pretty quickly, and then I tell them you'll come back to the slide to explain its significance later. Moving on to the exercises, ask students to spend a few minutes improving these sentences for reading comprehension. Remind students to incorporate the lessons in the pre-class work because they need to realize that that these sentences are in passive voice and they need to be converted to active voice. After a few minutes, ask students to discuss their answers with their partners for about 2 minutes. And after 2 minutes, ask students if they noticed any themes in the sentences. Hopefully, students will say that the sentences were in passive voice and they converted them to active voice. And that leads you into the next slide, where you can ask the class to identify which image is passive and which image represents active voice. And then ask them why. Once you've done that, talk through the slide as the video does and point students to the video if they need a reference after the class. Now that you have discussed active versus passive voice, you can get to the questions. The first question is straightforward, so I don't spend much time on it. The second question has multiple possible answers, and here's where you can remind students that each question has multiple answers, and there's no one right answer, and that can reassure students so that they don't feel that the answer is wrong because it doesn't match one of these perfectly. So go through each of these possible answers, pointing out how active voice improves the sentences. And then for question 3, that's the trickiest because an actor isn't clear from the original sentence. And so you can find out that you need to invent an actor here to clarify the sentence. And here's where students typically have multiple options. And so you can get class participation by asking students to propose their options and having a class discussion on their answers. So this exercise ends with a class discussion. Now that students are thinking about active versus passive voice and they see the benefits of active voice. So discuss why active voice is better and tell students discuss how the brain tends to convert passive voice to active voice before interpreting a sentence. And having sentences directly in active voice ensures that the brain does not have to imagine an actor and the actor doing an action on the target. For the second question, besides this example in the speaker notes, another example that students like is discussing mistakes, so saying mistakes were made, where you don't put the blame on someone, but simply talk about the mistake. And for the third question, sometimes you don't get class participation, so either be ready with an example or be willing to move on. That brings us to the end of exercise 2 on active voice, an important lesson in good technical writing.